Hey, welcome to the Strong Roots podcast. My name is Kristen Hill, and we are so excited that you're tuning in today. Our prayer is that you would move one step closer to Jesus through this series. So go ahead and check out this next episode. Hey, Strong Roots, I'm so excited to be here with you. We are in our season of loss and grief, and I'm here with Pam, and she is the woman who watches my children, and she has been doing it for years. So we mother together. And she has experienced a lot of loss in her life. And so today I'm really excited for her to share with you the loss that she has walked through and is walking through and how God has been faithful in it. So Pam, why don't you share with us what your grief story is and what that loss has looked like in your life?
I lost my daughter actually 11 years ago today. Mm-hmm. I lost my husband 5 years after that. And both were sudden, unexpected deaths. And it's been really rough.
Absolutely. How losing a daughter and losing a husband, was the grief similar or very different?
It was different in that when my daughter died, I didn't have a relationship with Jesus. Mm-hmm. And I felt really alone. My husband and I grieved the same way, which was to hold it in. We didn't want to hurt each other by talking about it. We just pushed it back. And that was a big mistake. And one day I'm in my car, and it had been a really rough day. It was about two and a half years after she passed away, and I was still struggling.
Yeah.
And I started crying, and I just started talking to God. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying, I can't do this anymore. Help me. Yeah. I need you. And I was just overcome with such peace.
Yes.
And I felt comforted. And I knew that, yes, there was a God, no question, no doubt, and that I wasn't alone. And he was going to help me. And from that moment, I started to heal from her death. And then after that happened, it was about 2.5 years later, then I lost my husband. And I was stronger. I knew that God was with me. I knew he would take care of me. I would be okay.
Yeah.
He would help me get through it. So even though both were devastating, right. I was able to get through it, I think, better with him than with my daughter, because I did not have Jesus, and I don't know how anyone can get through it without him.
Absolutely. So you talked about shoving it down. Mm-hmm. Talk about how do you now not shove it down? I guess is what I'm asking. Like, how does somebody who possibly is listening because they've just experienced a really hard loss and they're tempted to shove it down and not talk about it, how should you do it? What is the best way to go about it?
Find your people to talk to. Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid to bother somebody.
Yes, that's good.
Tell them you need this. You need to talk about them. Mm-hmm. People are very uncomfortable around you because they don't know what to say. They don't want to say the wrong thing, so they avoid it. Mm. So let people know, I need to talk.
Yes.
Will you listen to me? Something that helped a lot was I attended the grief share meetings after my husband died. And it was the best thing I could have done. Mm. I walked in that room, and there were these people that they were going through the same thing I did or was. And they understood. We had similar experiences, and it helped so much.
Yes.
I thought I was losing my mind.
Right.
It was hard to drive. I couldn't focus. I couldn't concentrate. I didn't realize that was part of the grief.
Right. Would you mind sharing some other things
Sure.
that are normal to grief, but for people, let's say they don't have people, this is their first time ever experiencing it, and they're doing things like feeling like they can't drive, or you've explained to me, and forgive me if I'm saying it wrong, but I feel like you've described, like, I can be walking in the grocery store and nothing can trigger anything, and I will just start crying. Yeah. Or maybe seeing the cereal you used to buy them.
Yes.
And that will bring waves of grief. But is there anything like that that is normal, but for you wasn't normal until you experienced it?
Oh. Well, I had a lot of anxiety seeing how somebody can be there one minute and gone the next. So I began having a lot of anxiety about things. For picking up your kids from preschool. The first year I was asked, I said no. I was terrified I'd have an accident.
Right.
I started focusing on all the things that could go wrong,
right.
That could happen. And that was my big thing. For a long time, I had to deal with the anxiety, and it could get really bad.
Right. How have you been overcoming that anxiety? What spiritual disciplines or things?
Talking to God.
Yes.
Praying for it, and He does help. Sometimes I just forget that He's right there, and all I have to do is ask.
Right.
And He will help me. He gets me through it every time.
Oh, that's amazing. So what have people done? Okay, you hit it. You said, I think we've all even experienced this, where somebody has experienced a loss, and you don't want to say the wrong thing. Mm-hmm. You're afraid to ask, or what if, all the things. What are things that people have done that were super helpful? And what are things that people have done that have not been so helpful?
Helpful is like you will, if I'm having a bad day, you'll pray with me. Mm-hmm. You pray for me, knowing that people are there and have my back. I'm not alone, because I feel sometimes very alone.
Right.
My family, just knowing that they're there for me. My brother has been such a big help. My grandchildren, and just focusing on friends, family, and
right.
find comfort in them.
That's a great answer. So how, and maybe this will dispel some people's fears, but is there anything wrong to say? Is there anything that's like...
I don't think there is, because it's all usually meant with a good heart, and they mean well. I have had 2 comments that hurt me. My daughter had Down syndrome, and she was autistic, and someone said, well, now you can have a better life. I can get out there and do things. I would have given anything to have her back.
Right.
And that, I couldn't believe that was said. And then someone had said, well, it's been a year, so now it's time to get on with life. And when you're married for 42 years, 1 year's nothing.
Yes, yeah.
And I am, I'm trying, but it's hard.
I would love to hear more about that, because I think a lot of times with grief, it's just different. You can't go back to the normal. Would you describe, you have been healing, but would you describe what that has been like for you? And because you've even articulated that you're not all the way healed from these. Would you just expand on that for me a little bit?
And on why I think that?
Mm-hmm.
I used to be very outgoing, a positive person. The deaths just, I don't know. I'm just sad. Sometimes I just feel numb inside. Mm-hmm. I try to get past it, but it's hard. I've dealt with depression. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. It's just, I'm just not myself. And I've said before, I miss that person.
Right.
And I used to think I would I would be that person again. But no, I mean, they were my life. They, without them, it's hard.
How has God used it for good? How has He changed you in regards to both?
Well, I trust God for everything.
Yeah.
I know how important He is in my life, and that I mean, every morning when I wake up, I thank Him for all the blessings He's given me. And even though there's been things that have happened to me, I got angry at Him,
Yeah, you're more steadfast, and I think in your faith.
oh yes, definitely.
Well, and it's interesting because she shared, and we've talked about this before, but how she feels less joyful, and I just think it's a different kind of joy. Like, this woman is one of the most joy-filled women I've ever met. You really are, and like, I almost feel like it's an inner quiet strength now, where maybe more it was out, but like, you have such a quiet inner strength, and you are so steadfast, and the joy of the Lord is in you, and on your worst days, I feel like I still see God's presence in you. And I mean, I see her almost every day. So I really appreciate that you share that, because I feel like some people may be feeling, it's been a year. Why am I still feeling broken?
Everybody grieves differently.
Yes.
People who have lost multiple people. I've actually lost, I believe, six family members in a short amount of time, and there's something called a complicated grief. And it's where there's been multiple deaths, and usually happens when you are older. But it makes it even harder to get through it. But there's no time limit on grief.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So has there been a Bible verse or a promise from God or something that has been like your rock? Like, I'm clinging to this.
There is a Bible verse, but I
Oh, yeah?
don't think I can remember. Yes. Just knowing that He's there and praying.
Daily. Yeah. He's there in every circumstance. So, in light of all this grief, is there something that you wish someone would have told you, or wisdom that you have learned from scars of going through this and like in the battle? Is there anything that you wish somebody would have explained to you earlier in your season of grief?
Don't feel that you have to do everything. Take time. Don't make decisions, important decisions. Really, the first 2 years, it was not a good time to make decisions, because you're acting all on emotion.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself.
Yes.
It's so important to take care of yourself. Don't feel like you have to take care of everyone else that's hurting. You do, but also take care of yourself.
Oh, that's great advice. And I remember you telling me that about not making, because we knew each other during the season of your husband's death.
Yes.
And I remember you saying, like, Kristen, don't make decisions if you ever lose someone within the first couple of years. And I think that's really sound advice.
Yes. When my husband passed away, the first year, I stayed so busy and was focusing on things, or trying to focus on things. It was the second year that really knocked me down.
Really?
Yes. I think it was then that it really hit me that he's gone, he's not coming back. And so it can hit really at any time.
I believe it. And I think the worst part is it's not expected.
Yes.
You can't plan for it. Like you said, everyone grieves differently.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for sharing all that. Now, Pam, your part's done. You did amazing. Now you get to ask me a couple questions. So what are those?
Have you ever experienced grief due to a loss of a loved one?
I haven't. I mean, I've lost my grandparents, but my grandpa lived in Ohio, and I just recently lost my grandma, and we were close, but I have not lost people really close to me in my life. I had a cousin who died of cancer, but I have really been spared of that right now in this season of life, and I feel so fortunate, but also I'm grateful to have people like you, and because death is inevitable.
Right.
Like we are all gonna die, and if not now, I'm going to, and I'm just really grateful for people like you who've poured into my life and have shown me how to walk through it graciously and with God at the center. So, yeah, not yet. So what was the other one?
And what are some ways that you have comforted a grieving family?
Oh, that's hard because I feel that tension, maybe we all have, of really not wanting to say the wrong thing, but I think Pam is someone I was really excited to interview because there's no questions off limits. Like, I feel like you've let me really pick your brain and never judged me or made me feel like I've asked you a stupid question. I think the advice that you've given me that I have used with other families is let them talk about it. So ask about if they've lost someone, like ask them to share a memory. Ask them about that kind of stuff, because I think so often this person that was so significant in your life, you want to talk about them still.
Right.
And the good times. And I know, so I think you've taught me, I mean, even in our relationship, we'll talk about marriage, and I'll ask about your marriage and ask about what you learned, because that's not dead. Like your experiences, your life, that part, like you have so much wisdom to give, and just because that relationship is no longer doesn't mean you don't want to talk about it.
Right.
And I think with grief, people feel like it just can't talk about any of it anymore. And I think you've really modeled for me that is so important when helping family and people grieve, is to, yes, check in on them, point them to Jesus, but then also continue to let them talk about it and share memories or share how they're feeling, whether good or bad.
I have talked about my daughter or my husband before, and you can almost see the discomfort on people's faces when you do.
Yeah. How does that make you feel?
Like I should not
Talk
bring
about
them
it.
up. But your kids, they love to hear stories about everything. And it's been so cathartic to tell them stories about my daughter and about my husband and funny things that happened. And it's good for me to get that out and remember.
Yes, they love her stories. You're a good storyteller. Well, thank you so much, Pam. I really believe that this is going to help so many people, and your wisdom and godliness. I'm really genuinely grateful for not only this, but the way that you have loved and poured into me and shown me how to love people going through grief as well. So,
thank you.
Yes, and thank you guys so much for joining us today. And I just want to leave you with this challenge. If you know someone who is grieving, and don't be afraid to ask how they are. Don't be afraid to ask them to share memories, to share stories of loved ones, because I would bet that they would love to have an opportunity to talk about it. So go on a limb and ask. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I can't wait to see you next time. Bye. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to follow us on our other social media platforms. We don't want you to miss out on any future content. Thank you so much again, guys. I hope you have a great day. And I want you to know I am personally praying that your roots stay strong.